Russia is no longer under the protection of NATO, at least not to the extent that it was. Now, other NATO members, Germany, the UK, France, said that Ukraine has free rein to launch whatever weapons they have as deep into Russian territory as they like. Up until recently, the vast bulk of Ukraine's long-range weaponry was only allowed to be shot into Russian-occupied territories, while they were allowed to shoot as many drones as they wanted around Moscow and here. And some of these long-range weapons are precise and deadly, like US ATACMS and of course British Storm Shadow missiles. But something that Germany hasn't allowed before that is extraordinarily deadly are their Taurus cruise missiles. Ukraine hasn't received any as of yet, but as soon as they do, they can fire them wherever they want. Now, not only are Taurus missiles faster than US ATACMS or British Storm Shadows, but they have a much longer range. Storm Shadows can go between 400 to 450 kilometers, while ATACMS can do 300, but German Tauruses can go about 600 kilometers at their max speed. Their penetration capability is exceptional. It is much higher than both of them, so these can hit heavily fortified Russian targets very deep into Russia. But another very important factor to mention is integration complexity, meaning that Taurus missiles are more interoperable with other NATO tech than the Storm Shadows and the US ATACMS. That's why it's also a higher risk of escalation. Remember now that Ukraine and Russia are both hitting each other with the largest drone strikes in recorded history almost every single week. But now Ukraine can hit Russia with more than just drones. While Russian air defense is far from perfect because they have a much larger surface area to constantly protect, it is quite formidable, which is why Ukraine hasn't launched jets to do any deeper strikes against Moscow. Ever since last year, Ukraine has had the go-ahead to hit Russia with F-16s, but like they said, it could be a waste of a good jet due to Russia's strategic air defense systems. But now that Ukraine can integrate drone assaults with a variety of other cruise missiles in any way, shape, or form that they want to deeper into Russian interior, then most likely we will start to see jet strikes. Question is, are the Ukrainian pilots experienced enough to be able to handle these F-16s? And time will have to tell us that. And as we keep reading about now, it looks like our current president is no longer so chummy with Putin. He's actually called him absolutely crazy. Putin has been at the very least sluggish when it came to any ceasefire or peace agreements, and our current president is losing a lot of patience with that. In fact, our president's own words were, "I've always had a very good relationship with Vladimir Putin of Russia, but something has happened to him. He has gone absolutely crazy." And all Russia has done was act very politely, because they know if they lose the support of the American president, or at least if they lose the indifference of the American president, then Russia will start sinking even deeper. Russia is heavily relying on a removal of sanctions imposed by the entire West, and it doesn't look like that's going to be very likely if we keep seeing this bickering between the two great powers. And even if Russia was able to export its goods to its heart content, they most likely won't be able to do that because Ukraine has already taken about 10 to 15% of their oil refinery capacity with drone strikes alone. How much worse will it get for Russia commodity trade if Ukraine can enhance these strikes? Now, I think it is a great thing that Ukraine is no longer limited in how they can retaliate against Russia, but that doesn't mean I want Russians to die. I don't want anyone to die, but if Russia is declaring a full and total war on Ukraine, Ukraine has to be allowed to do the same just to defend itself. It's best if Russia does the right thing and they set up a peace just by walking out of Ukraine. Russia started the war when they invaded Ukraine, and they will conclude the war once they leave it, either through some kind of very tough negotiation or through a humiliating defeat, which is becoming much more likely. I am the Geo Hussar, and the West has failed Ukraine by not allowing them to attack Russia with their full capacity since 2014. It shouldn't have happened in May of 2025. Thanks for watching.